Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow as the last piece of machinery clanked into place. The heat of the colony's engine room pressed down on him, and the faint smell of burnt circuits mixed with the dust from the surrounding hallways. Life on the outskirts of human space was hard, but it was the only life he knew. He had learned early that survival required more than strength. It required attention, patience, and a willingness to take chances. The colony was small, a cluster of buildings patched together from abandoned starships and mining equipment. Humans had moved here decades ago, chasing resources no one else wanted. Over time, the colony became a place where the wealthy rarely came, and where the poor like Daniel had to make do. Money was scarce, food was rationed, and danger lurked around every corner, from malfunctioning machines to the occasional wild alien scavenger. Daniel had just finished checking the cooling system on a generator when he heard a soft voice calling his name. "Excuse me." He turned sharply and saw her. She was small, smaller than most humans, with glowing skin that flickered faintly under the dim colony lights. Her eyes were large and watery, reflecting the faint luminescence of the walls. Daniel had seen many strange aliens before, but there was something different about her, something fragile, almost desperate. Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel frowned. "Talk to me? Who are you?" She hesitated, glancing down at her small hands. I need your help. I don't have much, but I can give you 5 credits, Daniel blinked. 5 credits? That wasn't even enough to buy a meal, let alone pay for labor. 5 credits? He repeated. For what? The girl's eyes filled with tears. I don't have more. But if you help me, you'll understand why it's important. Daniel studied her carefully. There was a strange sincerity in her gaze, an urgency he could not ignore. He was tired, yes, and suspicious, but he was also human. Curiosity and compassion often overruled caution in people like him. He nodded slowly. All right, I'll help, but you better not be lying. The girl smiled faintly and relief softened her features. Thank you, you won't regret it. She led him through narrow, winding alleys, past broken machinery and piles of discarded supplies. The further they went, the quieter the colony became, until they reached a hidden chamber beneath an abandoned storage building. The walls were lined with strange technology, humming softly, pulsating with light. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. What is this place? He asked, awe creeping into his voice. She hesitated. It's all I have left of my people. The pod contains their memories, their lives, their voices, everything. But it's failing. I can't repair it myself. I need someone human. Someone clever enough to save them. Daniel's hands itched, but not with impatience. This was a challenge unlike any he had faced. He approached the pod carefully. It was cylindrical, about 6 feet tall, with wires and circuits running along its surface. The light inside flickered faintly, casting eerie shadows across the walls. I don't know if I can, he admitted, running his fingers along a panel. I fixed generators and mining drones, but this... The girl's voice was quiet but steady. Please, you have to try. It's all I have left. If it fails... Her words faltered and she looked away. Daniel understood. Her people, her entire culture, history, and family was in this pod. It was not just a machine. It was a world fragile and irreplaceable. He took a deep breath and set to work. Hours passed. Daniel worked carefully, connecting circuits, calibrating energy flows, and repairing damaged interfaces. The girl watched silently, occasionally pointing to a blinking light or a broken wire. Sometimes she hummed softly, a tune he didn't recognize, but it was soothing in the tense silence. Finally, with a final adjustment, the pod emitted a soft hum. Lights inside flickered, then stabilized. Holographic images began to project from the pod, faces, places, voices. The girl gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. They're alive, she whispered, her small hands clutching at her chest. Thank you. You saved them. Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. Don't thank me yet. I just fixed a machine. But even as he spoke, he realized it was more than that. He had saved a civilization's memories, its culture, its soul. The girl shook her head, looking at him with intensity. You don't understand. I offered you 5 credits because that's all I have. But what you've done, it's worth more than any payment. You've given me hope. You've given me my past back. Daniel swallowed hard. The weight of her words, of the trust she had placed in him, made his heart ache. Money had no value here. It never had. But trust, hope, and the fragile remnants of a lost people, That was priceless. Over the next few days, Daniel returned to the chamber frequently. He continued fine-tuning the pod, ensuring the memory cores were stable. The girl stayed beside him, explaining fragments of her people's history, their songs, their customs. Daniel listened, fascinated. He realized that humans were not alone in the universe, not really. There were other beings just as complex, just as capable of love and pain. They worked together silently at first, then began to share stories. Daniel told her about human colonies, about the struggles of life in remote space settlements. She shared memories from her pod, lessons, celebrations, and moments of sorrow. A bond grew between them, not of romance, but of shared purpose and mutual respect. One evening, as the twin suns of the colony set, casting long shadows across the chamber, the girl handed Daniel a small crystal. It glowed faintly in the dim light. "This is all I have left of my family," she said softly. "I wanted to give you more, but this is mine to give." Daniel accepted it carefully. The crystal felt heavy, not with weight but with meaning. He understood what she was offering. Not wealth, not power, but trust and vulnerability. And it broke his heart, not because he wanted more, but because he felt the enormity of her loss, the loneliness that had carried her across the stars. "I'll keep it safe," he said, his voice catching slightly. "I promise." The girl smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and sorrow in her expression. "That's all I ask." As days turned into weeks, the pod stabilized. The alien girl grew more confident, speaking of her plans to carry her people's memories across the galaxy, to ensure their culture lived on. Daniel felt a mix of pride and sorrow. He had helped preserve a legacy, but he could not restore what had been lost. He could only protect it like a guardian of fragile stars. Together, they prepared the pod for transport. Daniel's hands steady, the girl's eyes bright with determination. Though they came from different worlds with different histories and struggles, they shared a purpose greater than themselves. And in the quiet moments, Daniel realized that humanity had more to offer than technology or courage. It had heart, and that heart could reach across species and galaxies. The final evening of Part 1 came quietly. The chamber was calm, the pod humming softly, lights flickering like distant stars. The alien girl turned to Daniel, her voice soft but firm. "Thank you," she said again, "for everything. I don't know how to repay you. 5 credits could never begin to match what you've done for me." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. You gave me something far more important, trust and the chance to make a difference." "That's enough," she smiled faintly, tears glimmering in her eyes. For the first time since he met her, Daniel felt something beyond duty or compassion. He felt connection, real, deep, and human. As the two of them looked at the pod, Daniel realized that even in the emptiest corners of the universe, human courage and heart could matter. And that realization filled him with quiet pride, hope, and the aching sweetness of something irreplaceable. Days passed since Daniel had stabilized the memory pod. The alien girl, whose name he learned was Lyra, grew more confident with each passing hour. The glowing holograms of her people danced inside the chamber, filling the air with soft whispers, laughter, and music from a civilization that no longer existed. Yet, thanks to Daniel's skill and care, their voices could live on. Lyra approached Daniel one morning, holding a small device that looked like a miniature star compass. "I think it's time," she said softly. "I want to take the memories beyond this colony, into the wider galaxy. They deserve to be known, even if no one remembers us in person." Daniel nodded. "I'll help, but it won't be easy. Moving this pod safely will attract attention. There are pirates, raiders, and humans who want resources, not knowledge." She looked determined. "I know, that's why I need you with me. Your skills, your courage, they give me hope." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest. Hope was rare in their world, and it was powerful. He agreed, and together they began preparations for the journey. They gathered supplies, checked the pod's stabilizers, and even modified a small transport craft to carry it safely through the dangerous sectors of space. At night, when repairs and checks were done, they would sit together in the chamber. Lyra would show Daniel images of her home planet, its floating gardens, crystal towers, and glowing forests. Daniel would tell her stories of humanity, of Earth, of colonies, of simple things like music and laughter. One evening, while they were working on the final calibrations, Lyra paused and looked at Daniel with a hesitant expression. "I want to show you something," she said. She led him to a section of the pod he hadn't explored before. There, images flickered. Family portraits, celebrations, and moments of joy. But one image stopped him cold. It was Lyra's parents standing together in a field of light, their faces filled with love and pride. They wanted to meet humans someday," Lyra whispered. "But the attack came too soon. I was the only one who survived. And now..." Her voice broke and she looked away, tears glistening in her eyes. Daniel put a hand on her small shoulder. "You've kept them alive. That counts for more than anything. You've given them a chance to be remembered." Lyra looked up, hope and grief mixing in her glowing eyes. "I wanted to give you more than 5 credits. I wanted to give you my gratitude, my trust, my heart." Daniel felt his own heart ache. He realized then that human compassion had a strength Lyra had never encountered in her short life. He had offered nothing but time and skill, yet the value of those acts outweighed any payment or reward. As they prepared for the departure, Daniel noticed that Lyra had become more expressive. Her laughter lighter, her steps quicker. She was beginning to heal in her own way from the loss of her people, and he too felt a change. His lonely life on the colony, filled with routine and hardship, now had meaning beyond mere survival. The day of the journey arrived. Daniel and Lyra moved the pod carefully into the transport craft. The hum of the memory pod filled the cabin, a constant reminder of the responsibility they carried. Lyra secured the final stabilizers and looked at Daniel. "Are you ready?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's make sure your people's memories reach the stars." The engines roared to life, shaking the craft as it lifted from the colony. Daniel guided them through asteroid fields and dangerous space sectors, his hands steady, his mind sharp. Lyra monitored the pod, adjusting energy flows and stabilizing holographic images. Together they were a team, human ingenuity and alien precision working in harmony. Days passed in tense travel. Raiders and scavengers lurked in uncharted space. But Daniel's skills and Lyra's knowledge of alien technology kept them safe. During quiet moments they shared stories of home, dreams, and the future. Daniel found himself smiling more than he had in years. Lyra's presence, her determination, and her trust filled a void he hadn't known existed. One night, as they drifted near a luminous nebula, Lyra spoke softly. "I want to tell you something, Daniel. I've never trusted anyone like this, not after everything I lost. But you've been different. You didn't just help me. You treated my people with respect, like they mattered." Daniel looked at her, the cabin glowing faintly from the pod's light. "They mattered, and they still do." "You mattered, Lyra, even more than you realize." Lyra's glowing skin pulsed faintly, a sign of her emotion. I wanted to give you more than gratitude. I wanted to give you my world. But all I could offer was 5 credits, and it breaks my heart that it isn't enough." Daniel chuckled softly, though there was emotion behind it. 5 credits? It doesn't matter. You've given me trust, a chance to make a difference, and a friend. That's worth more than anything in the galaxy." She looked at him, her eyes shining. I think that's the first time anyone has said something like that to me." Daniel smiled. "Then let it be true. We've got a job to do and we'll do it together." The journey continued, but danger was never far. One day, as they passed through a sector known for raider attacks, a signal appeared on their radar. A group of heavily armed ships had locked onto them. Lyra's eyes widened, fear flickering briefly, but Daniel's hands were calm on the controls. "We have to stay calm," he said. "We can't let them get to the pod. Follow my lead." The raider ships closed in, but Daniel's strategy, combined with Lyra's manipulation of alien energy shields, allowed them to evade capture. The pod remained stable, its holographic memories glowing softly, a beacon of hope in the void of space. After the danger passed, Lyra leaned back, exhausted but relieved. "You saved them again," she said softly. Daniel shrugged. "We saved them. Together." For the next several weeks they continued their journey, visiting distant human colonies and secret outposts, always careful, always vigilant. Along the way they shared knowledge. Daniel taught humans about alien technology, while Lyra shared her culture's wisdom. Each lesson strengthened their bond and reminded them why they were risking everything. Finally, they reached a safe haven, a hidden station where they could archive the memory pod securely. Lyra's eyes filled with tears as the pod was carefully unloaded and connected to the station's systems. Holographic images flickered to life, now stable and accessible. Her people's voices, once nearly lost, could now be experienced by anyone willing to learn. I can't thank you enough, Lyra said, turning to Daniel. You didn't just save memories. You saved hope. You saved me. Daniel shook his head. No, you saved yourself. I just helped a little. Lyra's small hands reached for his. No, you did more than help. You trusted me when I had nothing to give. You believed in me and my people. That's more than I ever expected. Daniel felt the weight of her words, their depth and their sincerity. He realized that humanity, even in the farthest corners of space, had the power to touch lives beyond imagination. He had come seeking work, a way to survive. But he had found something far greater, a purpose, a friend, and a glimpse of the extraordinary. As they stood together, watching the pod's holographic images dance, Daniel and Lyra knew their journey was not over. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders alike. But with trust, courage, and heart, even humans and small alien girls could leave a mark that echoed across stars and centuries. Lyra smiled faintly. Will you stay with me? She asked. To help me carry this forward, to make sure my people are never forgotten? Daniel looked at her, his heart full. Yes, wherever this journey goes, we'll go together. And as the stars stretched endlessly around them, Daniel realized that 5 credits could never measure the value of trust, courage, and friendship. He had learned that being human was not just about survival. It was about heart, the ability to care, to risk, and to make a difference. And in helping Lyra, he had found the true meaning of that lesson. They stepped into the future together, carrying with them the memories of a lost civilization, the courage to face the unknown, and a bond that neither time nor distance could ever break. The galaxy was vast, uncertain, and often cruel. But in that moment, Daniel felt something he had never known before: hope, connection, and the extraordinary power of humanity.